Okay.
Right. I'll tell you in a second. The 31st of December, Rabbi Furst, Pierke Avos.
Says good morning and good Floridish. As we said, this Rabbi Shalom first year Yeshiva Samanashni, here in Yerushalayim care of Zoom. We are learning Medrash Otis before Medrashim on
It's raining right now. It's
what's many times referred to as Megillus Antiochus, the, the few the remnants of what we have about what was written about the Hashmonoim. We're now in the paragraph starting Va'acher Kach, right? Va'acher Kach. That's the paragraph. You take a look here on your screen. It'll be uh, with the bold yellow. Okay. Yeah. Anyone who's interested in doing some reading to start with us?
Ba'achar kach ba'o b'nei Hashmonai leves hamikdash vayavanu ha'arim v'yisagru ha'partzos v'taru es ha'azara min ha'rogim v'ha uma tomos umitamos. And afterwards they came, the children of the Hashmonaim, into the Beis Hamikdash, and they brought the lights, the candles.
V'yivanu ha'orim. I think v'yivanu ha'orim. That seems to me that they'll that they built the cities, meaning I guess the cities were destroyed too, and they built the cities. Ha'orim, v'yivanu ha'orim. There were various. Maybe it could have been. Maybe it was Ir David. There were various places around the Beis Hamikdash that were had certain names and certain references. So maybe they had to rebuild them in some ways as well.
Okay. Vayisgaru partzos. I don't know.
So sagur is to close, right? They closed up parts of the breaches, right? We say parts of we right they in the Maos Sor we mentioned about the partsus, I think, yes.
Yes, the
So
13
that was
breaches that they made in the fence inside the temple.
right. So they sagur, I mean they closed them up.
They closed them up, and they purified the Azara, which is what, the courtyard,
Yeah, that's the Uzara, right?
from uh, Haharogim v'ha tomos, from their sins, and what is their harogim?
Hahorugim, all the dead. There are plenty of dead Greeks all around, and other people too. There were plenty of dead people around, all dead people all around. That was probably the most fiercest fighting was probably for the Beis Hamikdash. That
Right.
was that was the goal. That was the key to their victory. That was where and how um, the Greeks sought to crush the Jewish spirit by taking over the Beis Hamikdash, um, making the pirzos, the breaches in the various barriers that we had erected around the Beis Hamikdash to keep, especially to keep the goyim out and away, and they were matamol l'shmeinim, as we know, and they offered despicable things on the altars that were there, and they broke them, and they broke many things. So the when the Ishmaelim came to reclaim the Beis Hamikdash, I'm sure there's quite fierce battles. We don't, we don't know too much about it. It's not written too much about it, at least here. So they had to get all the dead bodies out of the way, and also the Vahamituumos and all the various different tumors. That could be, I'm not sure. I'm kind of guessing that could be that's referring to the Avodah. I'm not positive, but it could be a reference to the Avodah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, which they also brought in there. They were very happy to bring the Avodah into the Mikdash. Yeah,
Right, that was the goal.
yeah, that was it, right? To they were trying to destroy the faith and spirit of the Jewish people as much as they possibly could.
Vayivakshu shemen zayis zak lehadlik es haneros hamenorah below matzu. And they requested, or they sought to, oil, olive oil, pure olive oil, to light the menorah, but they didn't find any.
Right, very good. Bhikshu, they sought. Very good. Bhikshu, they sought.
He im to lo chayis achar asher haisa ha tuma bit vias I don't know,
Kohen Gadol.
the Kohen Gadol.
So again, Bhikshu, they sought Shemin Zayach Zach, pure olive oil to light the menorah. The low matzah, they didn't find Ki'im Sluchas Achas, except one flask, which had on it the Chasoima, the seal, B'tabas, of the ring of the Kohen Gadol.
Viadu ki hu shemen tahor. Because this was pure oil.
Since it had the seal from the signet ring of the Kohen Gadol, they knew he who Shemen Torah. They knew this was pure oil.
V'haya ba kishiur hadlakat yom echad, and there was in it the quantity needed for burning for one day. Ve'elokai hashemayim asher shachan shemo shem haniach
Sham.
sham Haniach bircha bashemen. And it was there was one day, enough for one day, and the Elokai, is this God? Is this the name of God or something else?
Right. No, the Relakai Shemayim and the God of heaven,
The
Miyakadosh Baruch Hu,
God of heavens, that what's Shechain?
Shochein Sham, that he dwells there. Shochein Sham Shemo Sham.
His name dwells there.
Right.
Um, and he
And
rests his blessing on the oil.
yeah, this is a little bit difficult. It says so. The Asher Shochein Sham Asher Shochein Shemo Sham Haniach Bracha B'Shemen. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the God of the heavens, Asher Shochein Sham Shemo Sham, his name dwells there, meaning I think that's referring to the base of English. The Kadosh Baruch Hu's name dwells there in the base of English. Haniach bracha b'shem. He placed a blessing, a blessing in the oil.
Vayu mochim kol laila v'laila echad. I'm sorry, acher arichas haneros ha'ashich mal'ah shemen v'ha'alu haneros mimenu shemona yamim. And it was motziim that they found each night, each and every night.
Or like it turned out. Hayimotzim call it. It turned out.
It turned out that each and every night, after the arichas haneros, the lighting of the candles.
Well, that was like the arikas. Is like the arrangement, the setting up of the arrangement of the candles.
The arrangement of the candles. What is this? Ha'asich?
Sikh. This might be a expression from a pasuk, but it means that it was discovered. It was discovered Mali Shemet. It turned out that this flask, after they had made the arrangement, set up the arrows to be lit, it turned out that this flask was still full.
And the candles in there, 8 days. The candles, the candles lasted for 8 days.
But alu haneres mimenu shmone, and they had the candles with the flames literally like go up, like exist from it for 8 days.
Baal Hatzil Sam V'nes Ha'asich Hahu Kablu the Kaimu hayehudim alehem v'al zarim lios osim es shemonas yemei Hanuka v'halel uva hodah v'chol shana v'shana v'zich ram lo yisof mizarim miziram. Um, so, and concerning what is Hatzilam, Hatzil Sam?
Well, al hatzlachasam on their success. This, I think, is a reference to the battle, to the war, over the over the success of the war.
The success and the miracle um, that was discovered, and it was received and established for the Jews upon the Jews and the offspring, that they would be placed, that they would be able to place the oil for the days of Hanukkah in praise and thanks with all in each and every year, uh, and to remember uh, that there is no end to what is mizarim, mizaram.
From the Zerah, from their offspring, Mizaram, from their offspring.
No end to their offspring.
And well, it means like it will not disappear from their offspring.
It will not the benefit of Hanukkah will not disappear from the offspring, from the Jewish people, in other words.
Right. And 1 second, I just want to see something. Dalid. Hmm. This I'm just trying to find the source. This word ba'asich, ba'asich. Try to it. The word shows up in Tehillim, but I'm trying to look that up. 1 second here. Yirmiyah. 1 second. Hmm. Yirmiyah. don't know. Um, let me see. I'll see. I'll see. I'll see. I'll see. Um, Asik, Asik seems to be this expression. Asik seems to be like maybe Asik. Asik of the pouring. Nesa Asik. I not sure. Not clear. 1 second. Unclear. Ah, okay. You've heard the expression yayin nesich, yayin nesich,
Yes,
or the so yayin nesich is when a non-Jew is going to use wine, he's going to libate it for avodah zarah. But the source of that word nesek is the nun is like a prefix. The source is a samich chof, which is like an expression for zrika, or it's also in this case pouring, right? So it was apparently he's calling it um the nes ha'asik, the nes of the pouring. So this is giving us an insight into what the actual miracle was. So let me ask you, what do you think? It said that the nair was burned for eight eight nights. So what was the nace? Where was the nace exactly?
the news was that it lasted a lot longer than it should have.
What the oil?
Yeah,
So the miracle wasn't in the burning. It was a miracle in the oil,
right.
right? Now, as he says here, it's described over here. They poured it one night, filled up the menorah. Okay, that it should be empty now, right? Next day they came, it was full. The flask was still full. So the miracle was in the flask that was found. The oil there, even though they only had a amount of oil that would last for one day, they were able to pour from it for 8 days. Every time they needed more oil for the next day, it was there ready for them.
It's like the burning bush. It says that the bush was burning, but it wasn't consumed.
Um, in a similar way, the the analogy that you're drawing to the burning bush, that the the bush was was not consumed, but here apparently by the oil was consumed, right? The oil in the menorah that they poured every day, that was consumed, and now they had to refill the menorah. And the nace was that they had oil still in that original flask to refill menorah.
Oh,
No, isn't that what it says? Let's look at the lashon again. Let's go back here. Um, let's start from the beginning. Um, okay, what are they doing here? We have the where on the screen we see the highlight there. Haya, right? So they Hayabo Kishir Hadlaka Yom Echad. In that flask that they found, it had a amount to light for one day.
and the God of Shemaim that whose name dwells in the temple. He rested a blessing on the oil. So the blessing is on the oil, like you said.
Right. And what happened? Well, Hayimotziim.
And it was that it came out each and every day after the arrangement of the candles. So now we're translating ha'asich as that they poured and filled with oil.
Yeah, well, okay, the asik, I'll tell you what, the asik, I think, is like here when you use the letter hey, turns it into a noun, a proper noun, ha'asik. So I think the asik is the pouring vessel, like the flask, the pouring vessel that they were pouring the wine, the oil out of. So this is look what it says here. Let's be careful. It says hayu motziim kol laila v'laila. It turned out that each and every night, acher arikas neros, after the arrangement of the neros, meaning the arrangement of the neros, they had to fill it up with oil. Besides putting the wicks, they may fill it up with oil. It turned out ha'asik mali shemen, the flask, the vessel which they used to pour from, was full with oil.
Huh.
So the miracle here, the miracle as being described over here was they found this one flask. And from this one flask, they would have to arrange and set up all the narrows, the flames for the menorah. And they have to put oil in each one of the cups of the menorah. And that only was there to last for them for one night. And after they each, and this is how what it says, each and every night, after they made the setup for the menorah, and they had set up the wicks, they set up the oil, they filled the menorah with oil. Lo and behold, the flask that they were pouring from was full. It never diminished. That's the nace. Right?
So this was the same flask that Yaakov Avinu left on the other side of the river.
Yeah, someone says talks about that.
I believe there's a midrash. I'm not sure, but I think there's a midrash that says that the flask that I think Elisha gave to the woman
Right.
to fill up all of her containers with oil
Right.
was the same flask that Yaakov left over on the other side of the river. When he went back to get the stuff, including the flask, and then he met with Sar Esav.
Right. Okay. It could be. Uh, sounds very reasonable.
And that flask had the property that you pour out of it, and then you look at it and you see, oh, it's still full.
Right. So that's what's going on. Excuse me. That's what's going on here as well. Right. So that's a very big clarification of what exactly the miracle was.
So according to that, the first day was not a miracle.
Right. That's the question that the Beis Yosef asks. Right. That's the famous question that they all try and deal with. Right.
Wouldn't the finding of the flask of oil be that miracle? A
So
different, not necessarily all one, or the oil business, the flame wouldn't necessarily be all one miracle. Maybe the finding of the oil and the flames, whatever, was the miracle.
uh,
One and a half miracle, one miracle A and miracle 1A and 1B.
right. So when so when we think about miracles, right? So there's some miracles which are more highly unusual than other ones, right? So meaning in another way, there are those miracles which clearly defy the laws of nature, right?
Mm.
So so finding the original flask, uh, although perhaps highly unusual, I'm not sure if it would really fit into the category of those things which are considered to be really defying the laws of nature, right?
Mm.
In which case it could be considered a miracle, but it would be a different class of miracle than in this case where you're pouring oil and it never seems to dissipate, right?
Okay.
Right. But okay. Let's go further, a bit more.
Okay, so Midrash uh, Hanuka.
And let's see. Well, I just want to review the last two lines here. Okay, so Va'al Hatzlachosam, on their success, which is probably most likely the battle, right? The war that was won. And then again, you should realize, as we mentioned, Agab, the war did not end with this, right? This was by no means the end of the war. They had a long, long 30-year fight to fight still after this.
Right. And a lot of the brothers died during that period of time.
Right. Yeah. It, so yeah, they it was not easy, and by any means. So therefore, but that's in our celebration of the redemption of Klal Yisrael. So in terms of the influence of the Greeks upon us, so that was successfully thwarted. by the Hashmonaim through their battles, as fought for them by Kadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what our celebration is. Our celebration we're not celebrating the military victory because the this was a spiritual victory. The spiritual victory had been won. So even though there was still more to do, uh, the spiritual victory had already been won. So
Yet in Al
now,
Hanisi, we talk about the military victories.
right, yeah, that's true. Because that's the because in order to wrest ourselves away from the Greek influence, we had to have a military victory in order to do that. The only way to oust the Greek influence from us was to have a military victory,
Right.
right? So therefore, that's where we had to, and that was their Mesiras Nefesh, their sacrifice, right? Their sacrifice was in order to achieve that goal, right? To oust the Greek influence from Klal Yisrael, and the only way to do that, to purge Klal Yisrael from the Greek influence, was through the military victories.
Rabbi,
So
I just realized I was
yeah.
just scanning my notes, and I saw a big question mark that I wrote. Why are the non-Jews' views important? You had me write that down. We were gonna talk about that.
Ah, okay. Okay, good. Fine. Okay, give me a minute. Let's finish up this last two lines. So again, Ahatz Lachasam on the success of which seems to be referring to the military victory, and Nesa Asach, and on the miracle of the pouring of the oil. So it seems to be the miracle as being taught to us here is the miracle was the pouring of the oil, that it was replenished miraculously night after night. Because of this, Kiblu v'kimu haYehudim alehem. This you recognize as a borrowed phrase from Megillus Esther. Kimu v'kiblu Yehudim alehem v'al zaram, and on their offspring. Vayos osim es shemonis yemei Hanukkah, to make for these 8 days of Hanukkah b'halel v'hodah, for praise and thanksgiving. V'kol shana b'shana, for each and every year. V'zoracham lo Yosef mezorim, and the right, the memory of these miracles will not um desist from their offspring. Baruch harav hu yariv. So Baruch. So now that we ends off, it ends. The measure ends off in a blessing to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, praise to a Kadosh Baruch harav es rivenu. Blessed is he who fought our fight, Hanuka es niklasenu, and vindicated our vengeance, the Hamashlim Gamul Lakol Oyevei Navshenu, and made recompense uh, for all those who are enemies of ourselves. Baruch HaKel HaMoshiach, blessed is Hashem, who is the Redeemer. Tam Midrash Maisa Hanukkah. Oh, and that's the end. That brings us to the end of Maisa Midrash Hanukkah. Okay. All right. So now, yeah, let's go back to that previous point. Well, again, what your note was referring to, that what's the importance? What is it? Why should it make any difference to Kadosh Baruch Hu, what the Goyim think, as we saw with Moshe Rabbeinu, right? He used as a part of his plea to save Klal Yisrael from the punishments, the reserving of them for the Chet Egel. He used the plea that what would the Egyptians say, and we see references as well in other places that it is a very strong appeal to be made to Kadosh Baruch Hu that he should um, act with, especially with Klal Yisrael, in ways that will not besmirch his reputation amongst the goyim. So I guess the question is, why is it important that Kadosh Baruch Hu maintains his reputation among the non-Jews? So to answer that question, um, as we were saying, when we say in the Aleinu that our prayer for the in the Aleinu is that all will acknowledge, right, that a Kadosh Baruch is one, and his Malchus, his reign, is perfect over the whole world, and part of that is including in the aspect that he's all powerful, right? He's the creator of the world. He's the uh, maintainer and sustainer of the whole world, the whole universe of all existence, and part of that includes his ability to be in being all powerful. So if in some way Hakadosh Baruch Hu's powers are somewhat viewed as being limited, right? So that's a Chilul Hashem. That's a besmirchment in the name of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, that in some ways his powers are limited. His powers are in fact unlimited. He's almighty, and if we anything happens that would suggest that his powers are in some way limited, that's for sure, then that would be a Chilul Hashem. So that's why it's important uh, what the goyim think, because if the goyim think because something is going to happen, Kadosh Baruch Hu's powers are in some way limited, so that's going to affect Hashem's reputation in the world.
So you're saying that the non-Jews know that we are the chosen people, and therefore, if they see that we are suffering, they say, "Oh, well, Hashem's not all powerful."
Right,
That's
right. It's
all Hashem, correct?
right. That'll be a Chilul Hashem. Right, exactly. It's like
So,
it's
so
like
the Holocaust was a huge Hillel Hashem.
yeah, you're right. It was, and it continues to be that way. Now,
But I one time heard an analogy given. Let's say you have a neighbor, and the neighbor has a spoiled child,
right,
and the spoiled child misbehaves publicly,
right,
and the father comes out and he gives them a good spanking.
right.
So the neighbors are going to think, good for him. Isn't it nice to see that the father is finally disciplining his child?
Right.
So the analogy is that if the Jewish people are misbehaving and Hashem disciplines us, then it's not a Chilul Hashem, it's actually a Kiddush Hashem.
So that's the exact point. Had the lesson of the Holocaust been taken, had been number one understood, number two been taken, and the lesson of it applied, then it wouldn't be a Chilul Hashem. But unfortunately, the lesson was not taught, the lesson was not learned, and the lesson was not applied. So therefore, we're left with a Chilul Hashem. If it was explained, if the Holocaust was explained in a way that made it clear that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was dealing, even though it was very harsh, he was dealing with Klal Yisrael for the benefit of Klal Yisrael, then then the lesson of the Holocaust would have been learned. You have this the same question. Let's say the Korban Beis Hamikdash, the first Korban Beis Hamikdash, the second Korban Beis Hamikdash. The destruction of the Beis Hamikdash is a terrible thing. Also a Chilul Hashem. So so you see, sometimes the Kadosh Baruch Hu will forego his reputation, so to speak, for the sake of for the sake of something else, for the sake of disciplining Klal Yisrael. The Kadosh Baruch Hu was suffering, so to speak, his reputation. Now, what happened in the time of the Holocaust could have been averted, right? Just as at the time of Purim, the destruction could have been, it was averted at the time of Purim, and in other times as well. But unfortunately, since the masses of Jews had been so led astray to the fact that they became atheists, and could not even entertain the thought of crying out to Kadosh Baruch Hu, to pray to Kadosh Baruch Hu to help them, right? So there was no cry on behalf of Klal Yisrael to Kadosh Baruch Hu. So unfortunately, the worst happened. But it could have been averted. The worst could have been averted, just as it had been averted many times previously, and many times other times in our history. And many times we've been under threat of gezeras and decrees, and sometimes they were fulfilled to a minor extent, and sometimes were fulfilled to a greater extent, and sometimes they were completely averted. But in the time of the Holocaust, there was no group of mass Jewry to pray on behalf of the mercies of Kadosh Baruch Hu and to do tshuva. The prayer is part of it, but in fact the tshuva was that Hashem was, as always, hoping and wanting that we should do tshuva. But that wasn't possible. The masses of Klal Yisrael were so far away from anything that resembled a thought of prayer to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, a thought of doing tshuva. So unfortunately, they went to their destruction. But you're right, it was a tremendous chilul Hashem, but had the lesson been taught, so it would have, number one, lessened the chilul Hashem. Whether it would have completely uh, cleansed the whole history of what happened in Europe at that time from uh, the chilul Hashem that it was. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if it could ever be completely erased. As the situation had gone very, very far, very, very bad. Situation was very, very bad. We,
But
we don't we don't have we don't have a conception of how bad it was. Might have probably been worse than by Hanukkah. Hanukkah, the Hellenists were somewhat, maybe 50%, but in Europe at the time, even before World War One, well over 50%. It was possibly closer to 70%. And
but
they weren't they
the
weren't they weren't simply um, uh, innocent bystanders. They were actively working to destroy Torah and mitzvahs. That was the worst part. The worst part, they were actively working to destroy Torah and mitzvahs. If they're simple so-called innocent bystanders, so that's one thing. But they were actively busy trying to destroy Torah and mitzvahs, which is the worst type of crimes they could have committed.
But the point of the analogy to the spoiled child is to say that when the worse it is, the more likely it is that the neighbors, the non-Jews in this case, will recognize that the Jews are not behaving properly, and they'll recognize that justice is being done.
No, but that's the whole point. Your analogy is only based on the premise that the neighbors realize that the child is a misbehaving child, but the whole environment of Europe post pre-World War One already was that there's nothing wrong in being a non-observant Jew. The child is doing perfectly well. The child is a wonderful child. What's he getting beaten up for? That's what we call the environment was polluted with a philosophy of what we call sanctioned disobedience. We call that sanctioned disobedience, and it was not even then considered to be disobedience. Once you sanction disobedience, it loses its connotation of disobedience.
So are you saying that Hashem, Kivyachol, let it go too far? That if Hashem had acted sooner before it got so out of hand that the non-Jews would have recognized that we were misbehaving?
No, I mean I don't know. I don't know. I can't make a comment about that. First of all, the Jews themselves, they were pushing for a policy of assimilation. Their policy of assimilation was not only favored by they themselves, the Jews, but is also favored by the Goyim to a certain extent. That's why the backlash from the German Jews was so strong, because at one point they realized, the Kadosh Baruch put it into their minds that you can't have Jews assimilating with you. But previous to that, up until the destruction, the Jews were interested in assimilation. The non-Jews were interested in assimilation. So they were functioning under a philosophy of rebellion, and then there was no recourse.
I don't know. I'm still having difficulty with this idea that Moshe says to Hashem, if you wipe out the Jewish people, then the non-Jews are gonna say, oh, Hashem couldn't deal with it, couldn't deal with the people or whatever. I mean, we misbehaved terribly. And the non-Jews could see what we were doing. They could see that we were having parties around a golden calf, and they could see that Hashem punished us for it. It's
Yeah,
very hard
but
for me to understand this.
I'm not sure if that statement's accurate. I'm not sure if they really understood what the punishment would be because of the golden calf. I'm not sure if they would understand that. Um, they they would say, well, they they're doing like we do. They worship idols as well, like we do. Any event, no, it's a big question. A big question. Why um, Kadosh Baruch Hu is concerned with his so to speak, his public reputation. Um, so that was one of the questions Avram Avinu was faced with at the time of the Akedah. Time of the Akedah, right? So here he is going to sacrifice his son at the at the at so to speak at the command of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And here Avram Avinu was in preaching to people Hashem is a merciful God. And so this is a very difficult thing to turn around and do. That here your merciful God is commanding you to sacrifice your son. Where's the mercy in that? He was faced with a very big dilemma. Any event, we can discuss it some more. It's a good topic to try and understand more fully.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if we can discuss it maybe tomorrow or another day. I have one more issue, and that is Esav hates Yaakov, so they're going to hate us anyway. So what difference does it make if they perceive that Hashem is treating us badly? They're happy about that.
No, it's not. That's the whether they're happy or not. It's not the point. The point is they'll say they were right. They were right, and Esav was right. This is a proof that Esav was right when he gave up the Bechor. He left everything. He washed his hands of the whole business. He did good for himself. That'll be a proof to their contentions.
And that's the Hill Hashem.
That'll also be a part. That will be included in the Chilul Hashem as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's very late, so I don't want to.
Right. Okay. Look, we can discuss the subject in more detail. I don't know if I can find something on the subject more detail. I'll try and present it. Okay. It's Hashem.
Thank you so much.
Roy, have a good afternoon.
Take care, Roy.
We'll stop right now for the.
Everybody.